think I'm Ronte.
Come on.
I think I'm Tony Jaa.
Come on.
I think I'm Dizano.
Come on.
I think I'm Sanchez.
Come on.
I think I'm Payakaru. Lurzilla Burka. I think I'm Muay Thai. I think I'm Muay Thai.
Be water, my friend. Anyone who's somewhat related to martial arts, ever trained, watched movies, enjoys the IG content knows this quote, right? So it's just fitting that the first ever Fight Principles podcast episode is, of course, about the man that's synonymous with martial arts. You say martial arts, you think Bruce Lee. So, of course, our first episode has to be about what can we learn, which principles of fighting martial arts can we learn from the GOAT of martial artists, the one that made martial arts mainstream. What can we learn from him? So welcome to the Fight Principles podcast. My name's Sasha. You might have heard me in the teaser trailer, whatever we call the first episode 0 maybe. So I'm your host, your main host for the time being. And we have different kinds of episodes here. We have interviews with martial artists. We have interviews with people that are into martial arts. But sometimes we also just break down what we can learn from famous martial artists. Can we take something from their approach to life and see if it fits to us for what we want to do with our lives? And I figured the first episode has to be about Bruce Lee. There's no way around that, right? So why? Well, I don't even need to introduce him because, of course, everyone knows that Bruce Lee is probably the most iconic martial artist of all time. He's not just known for his fighting skills, but for his philosophy, for his mindset, and all those things. So, in this episode, we will quickly talk about some stories of Bruce Lee's life. We look at some key lessons that we might be able to learn. And then at the end, hopefully, we also have some actionable takeaways to then apply, hopefully, in our own lives. I'm going to keep it quick with the backstories. It's not a history podcast, but if you want to learn more about Bruce Lee, please do read up on it. Yeah, there's so much on the internet, so many cool stories about what he had to go through. Very, very inspiring. He was born in the 1940s in San Francisco, but then was raised in Hong Kong, as you might know. And he then started practicing martial arts, starting with Wing Chun under Ip Man, IP Man, in the area, the American way. Sorry, my American listeners. So he started as a teenager, and then he moved back to the US in his late teen years, and there he faced some challenges as an immigrant. Because back then it's still not easy, I think, but it wasn't as easy to, I guess, blend in. And racism, of course, was more open than it is now. Eventually, he did open some martial arts schools and then also developed his own philosophy, which is known as Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist. And while doing so, the racial discrimination still continued, right? And that also happened while he tried to break into Hollywood. And eventually, as you know, he, of course, actually starred in movies such as The Way of the Dragon or Enter the Dragon, which might be the most famous movies of his. And it wasn't all like sunshine and rainbows. He also had to face lots of setbacks and challenges. And in 1970, for example, he injured his back during a training session, which then led to like months of recovery. So that was a very tough situation for him. And this time, he used this time off, so to speak, to write a lot, refine his philosophies, and showing us like how to then turn adversity into personal growth. So that's just a very, very brief recap of his achievements of his life. Of course, there's way more, so please do read all the books out there. Follow at Bruce Lee on Instagram. Like, his daughter is running the account, doing a great job there, so please do all that. So when we look at the core fight principles of Bruce Lee, I think there are a few that we can use to then look into like how we maybe want to shape our life a little bit after that. I use the word shape because, well, I have to go back to the first quote that I just used, like, be water, my friend, because that just shows adaptability. It's a difficult word for non-native English speaker. I'm sorry. So there's this whole be water philosophy. Like, And he explains it in a quote, right? Be water, my friend. Like, water adapts to any situations. If you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup, right? So water adapts to any situations you put it in. It flows around obstacles, but it's also powerful enough to break through them. And he, of course, applied this principle to martial arts by combining, and I'm doing it with my hands right now, but you can see that, by combining techniques from different disciplines rather than just sticking to one rigid style. You could say that Bruce Lee kind of started mixed martial arts. And yeah, lots of karate, lots of then kung fu, bringing it all together, even judo, throws, and things like this. So he brought it all together. And if you look at life, I mean, it tells us that you have to be flexible in your approach to challenges. Like when faced with with a problem, you gotta ask yourself, how can I be water? How can I flow around this? And do I have to like crash through it, or can I flow around and make it work? You know, it could be like career changes, for example, or even personal conflicts. Do I have to crash head on, or can I flow around it? So that's questions we have to ask ourselves when we are facing certain challenges in life. And be water approach, adaptability, is something that I think is very inspiring when faced with problems. We can also look into, I think Bruce Lee's story is a good example for resilience and also overcoming one's limitations. Because, as I just mentioned, his back injury was like a major setback. But instead of giving up, he spent time studying philosophy, writing, and improving like his mental game, which he then became really famous for. So in our lives, what I think we can take from that is that you can use setbacks as an opportunity to grow. And so you write down what you can learn from failure, and then turn this into like maybe even a challenge. Like, okay, I failed with this right now. What can I learn? Why did it go wrong? Challenge yourself to then be better or turn it around or find another way. So I think that's also, again, pretty inspiring to be like, okay, you're a martial artist. Now you cannot do what you're famous for, how you earn a living, but you find ways around it. Again, incredibly inspiring, I believe. And this leads me to one of my favorite quotes that is not as famous as the "Be Water, my friend" quote. And this quote by Bruce Lee is, always be yourself, express yourself, have faith in yourself. And that tells us a lot about like the importance of self-expression and authenticity. Bruce Lee refused to conform to stereotypes in Hollywood. He didn't just want to be like that normal, typical Chinese guy in a Hollywood movie. So he brought his own identity to the forefront. Like, he sometimes cocky, sometimes cheeky, but like he just was his own. He didn't want to just fit the typical Asian/Chinese stereotype in typical Hollywood movies. When we look at life, we can think of it like we don't have to try to fit into someone else's mold. And we have to embrace our uniqueness and let it shine, like whether it be at work, in relationships, wherever it might be. Because what makes us unique is our superpower. That's what, Bruce Lee's uniqueness made him what he is today, made him the legend in martial arts, made him what everybody looked up to him. If he would have just tried to be just another Chinese actor, that would have never happened. So don't fit into someone else's mold. Always be yourself, express yourself, have faith in yourself. And since we had cool quotes, there's one more that I really liked. It's not as famous. It's not a daily increase, but daily decrease. Hack away at the unessential. And that's something that if you also then read his writings, what he really emphasized on. He emphasized on like what matters most, and that removing distractions is really important, both like in martial arts, but also in life in general. So in life, you would identify tasks, habits, or relationships that aren't serving you and try to let them go. In martial arts, you would see like, okay, which moves work, which moves are just like a waste of energy, then cut them out. They're not part of Jeet Kune Do. So in life, you see, okay, which tasks, which habits help you, benefit you in growth, which don't. which are toxic relationships, for example, then let them go. Yeah, sometimes you have to say no. That's also what he said in an interview. So I think efficiency and simplicity, as a German, that of course strikes a chord with me, but I think everybody else also can relate to that. That sometimes efficiency and simplicity can be really, really, really helpful. So again, the quote is, "It's not a daily increase, but daily decrease. Hack away at the unessential." Okay, so focus on what matters most. Remove distractions in martial arts, but also in life. Now that I shared some quotes that are not as famous, maybe, so I also want to share a few little known details about Bruce Lee, if you want to entertain this for just a second. One thing that not everybody knows, maybe, is that Bruce Lee actually studied philosophy at the University of Washington and was like very much influenced by Taoism, Buddhism, but also Western thinkers like Nietzsche. Very interesting that he was open-minded enough to not only look into like the Eastern philosophy, but also into the Western philosophy, such as Nietzsche. Very, very interesting. This then, of course, influenced him and led him to be also like an author and a thinker, right? We also know him for that. He wrote like very extensively, he wrote a lot, and he also wrote the book, The Tao of Tet Kune Do, which was then published posthumously, so after he died. So he never saw it being published. Besides that, I think we can also say that he's been pretty innovative when it comes to fitness. He was one of the first to introduce strength training and nutrition practices into like martial arts training that were all very much ahead of their time. He even started using protein shakes and circuit training, something that especially martial artists were not doing back then. Like back then it was like very strict, like either you're a kickboxer or you're karate and you only do those things. But he's like, no, strength training, nutrition, protein, recovery, all those things. And lastly then, I think something that we can also clearly say is that Bruce Lee is kind of like a cultural bridge. Like he's combined Eastern and Western philosophies, like bridging gaps in martial arts and culture and what we think is like, an Asian actor, for example, an Asian actor can do. So I think that's something that he really, and it can't be understated how important he was for that, I believe. Right? When you saw Bruce Lee, you didn't think just about like, Asian, non-Asian, it's just like, oh my God, this is amazing what he's doing. And so that was a very, very important thing. And I think it can be understated how important he is for pop culture, movies in general. So a few takeaways here before we end it. So I think first, adapt like water. So you could identify one area in your life where like rigidity is holding you back and maybe experiment with a more flexible approach. Doesn't mean you have to change your whole life, but maybe just find like one area in your life where you're like, okay, I've been doing the same thing over and over again and it didn't lead me to anything. Maybe there's a way to be a bit more flexible about it, and then this will lead you further, right? So like the water that's flowing around an obstacle. Secondly, turn setbacks into growth. You could reflect on a recent setback, and see okay, what lesson can you extract from it? And how can this lesson make you stronger? Can I take something away from the setback? This didn't work the way I wanted to, but hey, I improved here. I learned something. Okay. Third, simplify your life. You can write down, and I do this actually like every other day or so, like quite often. You can do it on a phone. That's how I do it too. Simplify your life. Write down 3 things you can remove from your daily routine to focus on what truly matters. Do you really need to check your TikTok at 10 p.m., for example, when you go to bed? Just, if you're in the US, you don't check your TikTok anymore right now because it's banned. Let's see for how long, I know. But that's just one example. So it doesn't need to be like something crazy that you're cutting out, but small things that distract you from, for example, finding a good night's sleep. Okay, so write down 3 things that you can remove from your daily routine, and then you can focus on what actually truly matters. And the last takeaway, embrace your authenticity. You could think about one way you can express your true self within, let's say, this week. Whether at work, in a conversation, through a creative project, no matter what it is. Martial arts too could also be one thing. Find one way that really expresses who you are. If you do it, you're like, yes, that is me. This could be a spinning back kick in your martial arts training. This could be drawing something. This could be, I don't know, singing, dancing, anything that helps you talking, anything that helps you to just express who you really are. Maybe just being really quiet. It could also be a thing. Yeah. So do something that can really help you express who you are. If you do something that really helps you being authentic without trying to fit in the mold. Yeah, for one example, martial arts training course. I'm training lots of Muay Thai. In the beginning, I tried to look like all the other guys in the gym. Like I was looking around, like, okay, that's how they do shadow boxing. I feel very uncomfortable shadow boxing right now. Okay, I'm trying to look like them. I don't look like them. Once I stopped caring and once I just did my thing, it felt so much better. Right? So that's one thing that relate to martial arts. So find one thing that makes you feel like, yes, that is really me. Yeah, once you do that, you will feel so much better. All right, so let's recap what we did today in those last 15 minutes. Okay, so we looked into Bruce Lee's lessons on adaptability, resilience, authenticity, and simplicity. We looked at how his life and his philosophy continue to inspire, in this case, me. I hope you as well. So people worldwide. And that's where I want to end it on. Now I want to encourage you to reflect a little bit. So what's that one way you can apply Bruce Lee's wisdom to your life today? Yeah, so think about it and ideally leave a comment either on Spotify or on social media at 5 Principles, and then we can catch up and see what everybody is saying in one of the next episodes. So that would be very cool. So what's one way you can apply Bruce Lee's wisdom to your life today is the question. Okay. So next few episodes we have interviews, just a quick teaser. We also look at current martial artists. We will also look at for example, Conor McGregor. Yeah, I do think we can learn something from Conor McGregor as well. So we will look at current fighters, previous fighters, past actors. We will look at different kinds of martial artists. So not only people in Bruce Lee's line of work. And we will also have interviews and other kind of episodes as well. Okay, so thank you one more time for tuning into the first episode for the 5 Principles podcast. Until next time, please do share, subscribe. It would be very cool. Leave comments on Spotify or on social media at 5 Principles. Tell your friends about it. And then, until then, we'll talk soon. Stay safe. Take care. Keep your guard up. Chama.
I think I'm Rod Tang. I think I'm Tony Jaa. I think I'm Diesel Noy. I think I'm Sancha. Think I'm Payakarun Lurzilla Buaka. I think I'm Muay Thai. I think I'm Muay Thai.